that's what's so interesting. But I think the goal is, it's amazing how Star Trek has kind of identified so many moonshot projects in the technology industry. And so obviously the goal there is to build a fully, an environment that is photorealistic and all that. And we're trying to create, our products and everything. The visual fidelity is really, really important in making a really incredibly realistic sense of the world. In terms of like the tactile and all of that, that's probably the biggest challenge with all. The holodeck in Star Trek, you're able to interact with objects on the fly and have all those sensories, so that's probably going to be the most challenging thing. But honestly, one of the great things about being in the industry is that people come from that level of passion by being inspired like something from the holodeck and want to come up with really interesting solutions, even if they are years out. So it's having a lot of those conversations and seeing how we can help each other to ultimately deliver such an experience as the holodeck has teased us with since the 60s.
I think Doug covered it. It's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a switch.
I know, right?
It's like, wait a minute. It's, like, it's usually you saying. Anyway. Hey, so in thinking about the holodeck, though, what occurred to me was in the holodeck you have characters that interact with the person that's in the deck. Does that imply, if we're at the infancy, someone being able to buy maybe 15 years from now or 10 years from now, or even shorter, a robot, but then the robot is synced to the VR so that the robot becomes that character in that character's garb, and then it's touching you, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
is that where we're headed? Has anyone talked about that? And this just came out of my head.
Yeah, look, I'm a big believer in the potential when you start to combine a lot of the work being done with AI and deep learning, when you combine a lot of the work being done in robotics, which in some ways is a little, and then games. You combine those three things, you get an opportunity like what you're saying, right? So I think there's a lot of work being done in robotics currently around how do entities respond and react to human, physical language, right, and input. And taking that and bringing it into a virtual world, I think could be a good sort of kickstart to creating characters that respond in a lifelike way, right? Because currently when you talk about AI in games, it's pretty much just scripted, canned responses, and you can create a lot of variety with scripting, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of heavy lifting. Somebody has to code all of that in, and it's very, very, labor intensive, right? Whereas, if you can get an algorithm that can learn on its own and respond accordingly, that you can start to actually give a personality. So one character may have its own personality that influences how they respond to if I lean forward into you, and you're a hugger, maybe you'll lean in and give me a hug. If you're somebody who's just scared of clowns and I happen to be wearing a clown outfit and I lean into you, you're gonna run away, right? or shoot me or something. And maybe that changes during the course of the game too, right? Whatever. I run around scaring people in a clown suit, and now everyone who was a hugger turns into people that are scared of clowns. I don't know, but that's all the stuff that we can do with AI, and then having a lot of that AI work being done by robotics is all around how does an artificial entity interact with a human. And I think if we can bring that in, right, that can really help. Or at least that's my sort of hope.
I want to bring this back home to Skydance. This is, as we talk, January 8th. What is Skydance doing that we should be watching out for as the year progresses?
Well, I think for most people, if you have a VR headset, obviously you can engage with us by getting Archangel VR, which is on all the premium platforms. If you're new to VR and you're interested in that, we're making a major push in the location-based entertainment space in the VR arcades, and we're continuing to support Archangel as a game of service, so we're going to have a pretty major update that will include social play a little later this year that we think people are going to be really excited about, and we're, we always want to add more people to the community of fans around that. And yeah, I'll let Chris speak to the wider plans.
Then I think, so Archangel, as Doug mentioned, is live in market now. We're supporting that throughout the year. We take a games as a service approach where we launch the game and then we're going to give it additional content. Most likely, we're not doing. No, I don't mean microtransactions when I say games as a service. I mean more like we put the game out. We're going to service the community, keep providing features that we're getting asked about. Bringing multiplayer to Archangel will be a great, exciting element. So that's something you can get your hands on now and this year, throughout the year. But then looking into later this year, early next year, we're going to start really talking about The Walking Dead. So I think, making sure to keep an eye out in the second half of this year for just news about that, and we'll be putting up a site with information, getting in on the list to get early information and hear about some of the exciting stuff we've got planned there.
This is so much fun. I just want to extend just a little bit more.
Yeah, it's all good.
Cool. Awesome.
You got it.
Awesome. Hold on a second. Because any news about The Walking Dead that you can leak right here on Zenny62 Media, I'm going to respect this guy.
No.
Norman Reedus is here.
Okay.
Dang it.
No.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so on another conversation related, we're talking about human beings at the center of this new type of tech. But when you all make these, are you also thinking about how psychologically they will impact teenagers? Because there's a lot of talk about isolation and how that's the conversation of late, particularly with cell phones and everything else. Where are we in basically thinking about how what we're doing impacts society from that perspective?
I think there's a couple of things with VR. We design the games so that they have relatively short play sessions, right? Which is one of the things. It's not like when you're talking about an MMO online,
right,
where people can get drawn into it for marathon, 18, 24-hour sessions, right? With us, we really are building around 20 to 30 minute sort of session lengths. People get in, there's natural break points where people can get out. Certainly following all the industry guidelines of safety and all of that. So it's not something that we've been particularly found to be a problem. Thankfully. We certainly keep abreast of what the recommendations are and the findings are within the industry. But I think with VR, we're fortunate where that's just not a market where it's really been that much of a problem. We do make the platforms we sell on. We adhere to their age guidelines, right, for who's supposed to be on them, so we're not making games for kids or anything like that. Archangel is rated teen, so we are aiming for an older audience, again, not making VR games for kids. That's an area that I wouldn't be comfortable pursuing because the verdict is still out on what that actually means. You talk about isolation. That's one of the reasons we're really starting to focus on social play. If you've actually tried a VR game with somebody else, whether it's through a co-op or multiplayer, or even just like the rec room, like just a social hangout, it's incredibly immersive and incredibly social. So I think for us, finding ways to promote that social side of it versus having somebody hold up in their basement for 6 hours just glued into VR alone, right? That's not really what we're about. So,
thankfully, but it does lead me to another question that has a tie in with pop culture, and that is one of my favorite bad movies, for which I had the opportunity to interview Jeff Fahey right here at Zenny62, Lawnmower Man. Is that possible? Because Lawnmower Man was VR.
Right.
But that was 1982. And there are a number of criticisms of it. But now it seems like I feel like we're that in Transcendence. When we reach a point where VR could actually take someone and make them digitized and control other Internet of Things devices, how far can we take that?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a lot of that's looking out in the long term of things about how it's all going to work. you know, to be honest, as a company in general, we're really fascinated with those types of things. We actually have a show that's coming out on Netflix next month called Altered Carbon. That's all about the digitization of the human mind being encoded.
Say that again, please.
Sorry?
Say that again, please.
So yeah, so for Altered Carbon, which is coming out on February 4th on Netflix, it's in a world, you know, futuristic world where the human mind can be is digitized and encoded into a cerebral cortical stack, that's implanted and allows people to, you know, time or travel throughout space and be uploaded into new bodies, which are called sleeves, and all that. So, you know, we obviously think about these things in the context of the entertainment that we create and the worlds that we want to build. And obviously, a lot of these things are things that we kind of just throw around at the office to see when that's going to happen. But you know, we look at this as a long-term play with all of what we're doing.
This is fascinating. Where the heck did that come from? You didn't even tell me about that. That's incredible.
Yeah, so Altered Carbon, that came out of our television group. They picked up the rights to a series of novels from Philip Morgan, and he created Altered Carbon. It's an amazing trilogy of books, and we've based a show on that. The show is amazing. And to Doug's point, you know, we really are looking forward, whether it's on film, television, interactive, whatever it may be. And yeah.
Wow. Folks, this is a fascinating interview. And for my programming note, folks, this is a two-parter I'm going to upload today. And I want to thank you all. This is incredible. Tell them the website to check out more of your...
Well, Skydance, skydanceinteractive.com or skydance.com.
Oh, wow. Hey, thanks, guys. We could have gone on forever.
Yes.
This is great.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks a lot, Sam.
Yeah, definitely.